I'm Pastor Horton. Welcome to this week's message where we get the distinct pleasure of talking with Mr. Ryan Reichert. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Pastor Horton. I greatly appreciate it.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit before about your testimony. If you don't mind just going over that again, it's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I love starting it. Ryan T. Reichert from the small village of Hoople, North Dakota, Tatertown, USA, circa 1978. I was born and raised Catholic. Married a Lutheran when I was in college, and we joined the United States Army for about 23 years. My faith wasn't what it is today, where it's very strong and very passionate. But I think it was those 23 years in the military where I kind of found myself as almost like a nationalist. And in so doing, we had two beautiful children. And once I did retire, I found myself in Fortune 500 America trying to, have the next rank or title, striving for more money and more power. And I was abusing alcohol and prescription drugs at the time. I was not what I would call a kind, loving human being in any of those moments. And I found myself sobering up in November of 2023. Through that, my former spouse and I, we separated and got divorced. And I spent about a year and a half without my children in my life. But through that, I found Christ. And it was such a beautiful thing. Every day, I call them my three daily wins today, where it's you have a physical win, a mental win, and a spiritual win. I try to do that between 5 and 9 so I can lock in my 9 to 5. As today, our Protector LLC is a coaching and speaking business with also writing support. I never would have thought that I'd be an entrepreneur. My father and his father, my grandfather had Reichert's Insurance in Hoople, and I was afraid to be an entrepreneur, I think, because of not being a farmer in a farming community. And every year it's gotten better since I sobered up. I started teaching sixth grade boys last year at church, and now we have the seventh grade boys. And every day in the morning, I read my Bible for that mental and then spiritual in my prayer and meditation that I lock in. I've found that light that the Lord was always shining, but I was looking in the opposite direction. And today, it's just such a beautiful gift. I have both my girls back in my life, actually, as we speak. They're watching a movie. We just had dinner together. And you want to talk about the greatest gifts of having your children return to you. I can only imagine how the good Lord feels when we come back to Him. And so it's one of those things today where I'm eternally grateful for my second chance at life.
Yeah, that's incredible. First off, thank you for your service. I'm former Navy, so go Navy beat Army, but
Yeah,
uh
absolutely.
but also congratulations, honestly, on sobriety. Um, and not sure how many people say it, but I'm proud of you for taking that step and for doing that. It's tough and just it's an amazing fight. So
Thank you.
congratulations for that. Um, you briefly talked about, how great it is having your kids back in your life and, imagining what joy God feels when we come back. And one of the first parables that I ever actually like read to understand was the parable of the prodigal son,
Hmm.
which I love because it describes me very well.
Sure.
I grew up kind of in faith, but then walked away from it and then came back. And then reading that, I basically said, well, this was written, what, 2,000 years ago, but
Yeah.
talking about me.
All right.
And just the fact that the father in the parable lifted up his robes and ran to the son, which in that time was very um, undistinguished to do.
Hmm.
You don't pick up your robes, you don't run in robes, it doesn't look good. But to have that happen and to welcome the son back, I imagine that's exactly how God reacts every time is doesn't matter what is happening in life. He is just so happy to have us back.
Hmm. Yeah. No, I definitely agree. I think it's the dynamic that like, just reflecting on watching myself, and it's hard, right? Because I can't see, I know I've had a shift in my life the last couple of years, but to really understand it and gain that clarity and just a completely polar shift when it comes to how you live your life and, who is allowed into your life today. I mean, I always struggled with boundaries and, establishing, it's like who's the coolest to hang out with, who seems to have the most fun and all these things. And, there's a lot of darkness in those areas. And, I had no problem living that.
Yeah.
Today, it looks nothing like that. And like I said, before we hit record, at times you could look at it and go, boy, that's so boring. And today I just look at it as, peace, serenity, that clarity that you have with, not clouded in chaos, and the understanding of the material world that we can live in and struggle with. Because I struggled for years. It had to be bigger, badder, better than the next person. Definitely had to keep up with the Joneses, even though I didn't know a Jones. And yeah, it's something where even though the Lord knows when it does or is going to happen, it's probably like he's sitting there with a big thing of popcorn, going like, I can't wait till this part of Ryan's story. I love it every time, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And the same for you, and just knowing that we don't know when that's ever going to be, but I'm certainly glad it happened.
Absolutely. So you talked about working with youth, and that's something that I can also, you know, empathize with
Hmm.
because I help lead a lot of youth groups, and we're diving into, I'm not sure if you've heard of Alpha,
Hmm.
but yeah, we're getting into that. And the first questions were, what makes you happy?
Yeah.
And so, we're talking about that. This this started 2 days ago at the
Okay.
time of this recording. So like we just started this, and those first questions were, what makes you happy? And what couldn't you live without? And all of those kinds of things. And so to hear you talking about like you were chasing those materialistic things, that's
Hmm.
exactly what we just started talking about. And
Yeah.
I'm not going to say I didn't, because I certainly did. I was the same way. I talk pretty often about, before I was becoming a pastor, I was going to get a degree in cybersecurity because it pays a lot of money. That was my only reason. And then I found ministry and said, okay, I'm passionate about this. And that's where, the difference happens. It's what you're
Mhm.
passionate about. And I always thought that was, just people talking about, oh, find what you're passionate about. You'll never work a day in your life.
Right.
It's true. Absolutely. And so, having the ability, as you do and as I do, to help youth get on the same step as we are, but I mean, for me, it's 4 years beforehand.
Hmm.
Like, it's just an incredible feeling that I absolutely love.
Yeah. I love that you brought up alpha. I mean, that was kind of my journey about 6 or 7 months into sobriety, and it was about smack dab in the middle of the divorce process. And I, our church had the Alpha series through, and it was such an enlightening time, the 10 weeks or whatever we had, and greatly look forward to every week. I mean, a lot of things where I was struggling with, that they served dinner. So I was appreciative of that, right? I was, living on my own for the first time in quite some time. And the
Yeah.
dynamic of having a meal and the fellowship. And then, I guess, leaders of our seminar was a couple and actually became really good friends with them and still are. They're enjoying this winter in Florida. So I kind of, as I look out the window and see the snowbank here, I hope they're doing well down south. But
Oh, yeah.
it was certainly something for me where I look at um, such an integral part of like kind of regalvanizing, what I believed my faith was, but gaining a greater clarity of the years past and how I was raised in Catholicism and what limited practices we did as Protestants being Lutheran. My former spouse was Lutheran, and so the girls were baptized and so forth, and had First Holy Communion. But we weren't, like I said, me as the father, I was not being we didn't say our prayers like when we had dinner. We didn't say our prayers. Maybe we prayed sometimes at night before the kids would go to bed, but it wasn't when I think of like truly spiritual like practices, when I think of like that ritual that allows you to continue to have that constant conscious contact with God on a daily basis, be it, morning, noon, and night. So you're locked in because of just what it can be without that. And so how fast for myself, at least speaking here, the complacency can happen if I don't stick to my routine.
Yeah. I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with, actually. I was in my young adult group yesterday, and we were talking about, we just went through the book of Ephesians, we just finished it. And one of the questions we asked is, what can we do to prepare our spirits for the warfare that we're going to get into? And
Mm-hmm.
more than one of them said, being consistent with prayer, with reading the Bible, with working out, with eating, like with anything, just consistency. And
Yeah.
that's something I also struggle with is being consistent. Because I'm not one to hold on to a schedule very easily.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, what I've found that helps me is just praying anytime I think of it,
Mm-hmm.
which some days, not a lot. Other days, it's every 20 minutes, every
Yeah.
5 minutes. And I think the biggest thing is at night, I've got it right here. It's this planner that just every night, goes through a couple of verses, and then you write
Mm-hmm.
down, what was speaking to you. And then every morning, I check my phone because that's a terrible habit I have. But I open up the Bible app and just read the
Okay.
verse of the day, and that's how I
Yeah.
start my day.
Yeah.
And just having those two, it's not an all day, every day is mapped out, but reading the Bible when I go to sleep and when I wake up, those two very simple actions doesn't take more than 10 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
works wonders.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, yeah, I actually, it's funny. I'll grab a copy here on the floor. For me, it was the dynamics of kind of the first 6 months of, going through living on your own for the first time in 45 years, I guess, whatever. And then realizing, I call them the art protector development spiritual practices because you can't have spiritual without ritual. And it's very much the same as you're talking about. It's, upon awakening, it's prayer, meditation, that attitude, gratitude. I thank the Lord for either, like having a new day to be awoken into, and then knowing I'm in a bed, the electricity must be on because it's still temperate inside, the bedroom and so forth. And then I go through, what am I grateful for? 10 things that I'm grateful for. I pray for three people that I do not adore. So people that, have hurt me in my life. And I've had to forgive, but I still continue to have contact with them, needing to have contact with them. And still, it's a struggle. And then those three daily wins that I talked about, the physical, the mental, and the spiritual, which for people, it can look like just walking your dog. Like, for me, I know that's how my day starts is walking the dog, feeding them, walking the dog, then going to the gym. But then read my Bible is my mental win. And then, my spiritual win is really that prayer and meditation, which I didn't know how that was ever going to work in the beginning. It was more prayer. And now it's truly just being able to sit in silence and absorb all the good things really is what it becomes because there's so many things to be grateful for. And then there's areas though, kind of from the military, where the AAR, the after action review, where you have like sustains, improves, and then actions you're going to take to make your basically practices better. And there's a couple mantras I have, like the in the morning, it's not today, Satan, not today. So I have another buddy that I don't know if anybody would know the movie Beetlejuice or if you've seen it or not, but instead of Beetlejuice, 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 and he poof comes alive or whatever, it's Jesus, 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 and whatever thoughts that you're having that were negative have a tendency to just kind of go away. So I got a buddy of mine that him and I we say that, and it seems to work out really well. And then before you go to bed, it's not tonight, Satan, not tonight. And then you go through that similar prayer, meditation, and then gratitude before you go to sleep. And it's something that for me that's really, really helped as I go about my days in and out of them. And it's interesting though, if I do miss though, and it does happen,
Oh yeah.
oh, I didn't sleep very well last night. And just like you're talking about in Ephesians, like putting on the whole armor of God, it's just like I think about, watching the playoffs this weekend, football players, they got helmet on, they got
Hmm.
pads, they got this, they got that, knee braces. I mean, that's think about like, yeah, the spiritual warfare of life. Like you got to put the full armor of God on. And I'd never really embraced that until probably a year and a half ago, the first Bible study that I joined, men's Bible study. And yeah, we were that's where we started, right? We started. And so it was so cool
Yeah.
to think about how talking through that and just visualizing what it takes, knowing that, every single day there will be that type of warfare, just like you said, for the guys in the young adults out there, knowing that physical fitness is such a huge thing, and then our nutrition. I mean, those two things alone can really. I mean, I think about as we get older, it's just like I can't sugar. Sugar's my last one that I'm fighting today. So got rid of the
Yeah.
nicotine, got rid of the caffeine on a daily basis. So now it's like sugar, and that's a tough one. That's a real
Oh
tough
yeah.
one.
The caffeine I could not do without.
It's
That's
hard.
yeah. I have to say, I absolutely love the way that you described prayer and meditation. When you started out, it was just constantly talking, and then the meditation aspect wasn't quite there.
Mhm.
I think that's a thing that a lot of people miss when it comes to prayer is it's not a one-way conversation. So being able to sit in silence, you're giving God a chance to speak back to you.
Yeah.
And that's not easy. I mean, we in our society are naturally weary of silence. We don't
Mhm.
like it. We want the silence to be filled. So to be able to just sit there after pouring out your heart to God and just trust, have faith, and listen, that's so difficult. I mean,
It, it,
it is for
it
me at
is very
least.
difficult, but I'll say this, and it was a year ago.
Hmm.
I went to a retreat with the Jesuits here in Minneapolis, Minnesota. So it's called the Montreville, the state that it's on. And that's where I finished my first book that I wrote. And the dynamics is it's a 4 day silent retreat. Like you don't talk for 4 days. And you want to talk about getting some downloads? Unbelievable. Now, granted, there's different practices that are led by, a priest and so forth, but it was just unbelievable. I mean, it's so powerful having 4 days of silence, really, and then like the first day, how just drained you are because you're taking in a lot, right? And obviously the detox of noise. We don't
Hmm.
realize how much the things we choose to listen to have such a massive impact on ourselves and those that are around us and how we absorb that energy and that noise. So today, after that, I really love it. Just driving the truck without the radio on, like, and the things you see, it's just you don't realize how beautiful the world is when you can actually sit in silence and not constantly have to have the noise enter, your atmosphere, basically. So, I mean,
Yeah.
I think once you get it down, it's something to truly cherish.
Yeah, that sounds like a struggle, first off, but it certainly sounds just incredible.
Yeah.
We are just about out of time. You
Oh,
mentioned a
but
book.
yeah, I did. Yeah, first book. It's a great one. I don't know if we can see it with the lights,
Hmm.
but God only knows when the devil comes for a second chance at life. Takes you through my journey of the initial sobriety and the unfortunate side of separation and divorce. Losing a job, went through my whole life never losing a job and lost a job while going through all of that. And basically, there's a lot of tools in there to just kind of help you along the way, knowing that I made it through it. I didn't think I was gonna. I was scared. It was sad. When I reflect on it today, at times it still is sad. And so we realize that the good Lord, He'll give us a second chance. And so, what are we really going to do with it? That's the bigger piece that I would love to leave that with everyone listening. Is just if He wakes you up today, tomorrow, whatever it is, like what are you going to do with it? How are you going to become your best self? And not doesn't mean every day is going to be the day that you want, but I didn't realize I'd get a second chance, and I'm going to make the most of it. Basically, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us. To everybody else who's listening or watching, we will have a link to that book in the description of wherever you found this. On top of that, please share this message if you feel like you know somebody who may benefit from it, or just some random person. Never hurts to spread the word. I
Amen.
do hope that you have a wonderful week, and God bless.